All right, we've got People v. Jacob Keefer, file 24-6934FH. Counsel, you want to state your appearances, please?
Anthony Julian on behalf of People.
Brian, we have a Jacob Keefer.
All right, we're here for sentencing, an attempt felony motor vehicle and attempt larceny over 1,000. Mr. Clayton, have you had a chance to review the pre-sentence report and recommendations?
I have.
Any additions, corrections?
No.
The advisory guidelines are scored 0 to 17. Any scoring challenges?
No.
I did have an opportunity to review several letters of support for your client. I'll make sure that you and he know that. And Mr. Juliet, any additions, corrections, or scoring challenges from the people?
Just one correction that goes to the sentencing credit. It does have 272 days as of today's date. That's on page 2 of the basic information report and page 2 of the pre-sentence investigation report.
Okay, 272 days?
Correct.
Okay. All right, Mr. Clayton, does that agree with your math?
All right. Yeah, that's correct.
All right, anything you'd like to say on behalf of your client?
Yes, Your Honor. As I look through Mr. Keefer's record, I would clearly indicate to the court that he's had a tough go of it with the drugs. There's no question. I know this is a drug case. And that's probably to his credit. The only thing I see that's of similar ilk in this case, it was a 2010 retail fraud in Jackson County. I don't see any theft crimes on his record. And I don't necessarily agree with the court or with the agents. I would say it's more just an opinion. The last sentence of the recommendation narrative. Starting with the jail only sanction has been recommended in this matter as community supervision was just completed. And then an emphasis added, and he clearly has no intention of investing in making positive life changes. So I actually disagree with that. And I'll tell the court why. Throughout the course of this, obviously it's been kind of a protracted case all the way up to literally the eve of jury trial when we came to this resolution. But in the course of it, I've had a lot of chances to talk to Mr. Keefer. I think that that's not really true, that he has no intentions. I think he's got to struggle to, I don't think it's going to come to him organically. I mean, he and I have had conversations about criminal associations, hanging out with people who are not looking out for his best interest, cutting ties with people who are destructive in his life. He's answered the questions. He's told me what. I don't think he's telling me what he thinks I want to hear. I'm trying to give him a roadmap to a better life. I think he's got a lot of positive qualities and characteristics. I think his biggest downfall is his ongoing drug addiction. And until he gets that handled, he's going to continue to have problems. I hope he doesn't. I find Jacob to be a pleasant person. When I talk to him, I think he's a hardworking guy. I think he's got some struggles. He has some struggles, even when this case was pending, he has some struggles in the jail. I wasn't involved in those cases, but I'm aware of them. But nonetheless, he's wasted a lot of his life, big portion of his life, especially in the last 2 decades, sitting in some sort of incarceration, whether it's a jail or a prison cell. He's got to strive to do better. And I think he's just got to recognize, honestly, in my opinion, that this isn't going to come organically to him. He's got a personality of such that addiction is in his nature, whether it's drugs or alcohol or gambling, I imagine, or any other vice. He's got to control it. But the only person at the end of the day who can keep Mr. Keefer from using is Mr. Keefer. If he's committed to a lifetime of sobriety from here on out, I hope he is. He said he is. He's told me he is. If he is, then he will certainly be a success. He has the ability. Conversely, if he goes back to that lifestyle, I'm saying this to the court, but I'm also saying it for Mr. Keefer's benefit, as he's sitting right next to me. He goes back to that lifestyle. There's no reason to think it will be right back in front of you, or worse, death. Because that's where drug addiction leads us, to prison or to an early grave. I don't want either one for Mr. Keefer. So I'd ask the court to sentence as recommended. It seems appropriate for the facts and circumstances and the guidelines scoring in this case. But I certainly hope that the court's heard my words and understands my position. I also hope that Mr. Keefer understands that my desire, my strong hope for him is a better life. And it only comes through sobriety.
Thank you, Mr. Klein. Mr. Keefer, you don't have to say anything today, but it is allowed. Is there anything you want to tell us or not?
Yes, Your Honor. I'd like to apologize to Mr. Tyler Nash and his family. It is never right to impose on the rights and property of another person or to disturb their way of life, peace of mind. I feel terrible for my actions. I did exactly that. So I'm sorry to Mr. Nash for the negative impact I've had on him and his family. I'd also like to apologize to my family, loved ones in the community. I've embarrassed them, burdened them, and let them down. I do want to do better. I strive to do better. I'll be the first to admit my actions were totally unacceptable. And I take full responsibility for my transgressions. Ready to accept my sentence.
Thanks, sir. Mr. Goodrich, any recommendations from the people? Oh, sorry, Mr. Julian.
Just briefly, the recommendations for 1 year in jail, that seems appropriate given the guidelines range. Based on his prior record, I think there's also an argument that he should go to prison. But this is a property crime, and I guess I'll just say this, I'm encouraged to hear the apology, but being that it's just a property crime, obviously the grids go down, but they still have an impact on real people. You know, there's no psychological injury, but I don't think anybody wants their vehicle get broken into at night. So they do have an impact on people. Otherwise, I support the recommendation.
Thank you. Mr. Keefer, if you please stand for the court sentence. Well, Mr. Keefer, you are 35 years old and you've already got 7 prior felonies. And I was struck, I didn't really know a lot of your criminal history because just before I took the bench, you got a pretty significant sentence from my predecessor. So I haven't really dealt with you much until now. I mean, I was in the prosecutor's office around the time of some of these, but I don't know that I was really involved in it. So I haven't had a lot of, you weren't really on my radar, just let me put it that way, which is a good thing, right? If the circuit judge knows who you are, that's not the best thing. But I didn't really know too much about your history. So I was struck by this, that in 2010, you got into drug court. And while you were in drug court, you had a new delivery charge and got kicked out and got some jail in 2012, a year in jail. In 2013, more delivery charges. You plead in 2014, you're sent to prison for a couple years. You're paroled in 2016, discharged in April 2017. By July, you got more felonies. In 2018, you're sentenced on those. You're sent to prison for more than 5 years, 5.5 years. You're paroled in 2023. You're discharged in July of 2024. And then within a month, you catch this case. And your bond gets revoked in December, and you've been sitting in jail for about 9 months. So you're 35 years of age. Since you were like 20, you have been either in jail, in prison, or on paper. Are you getting tired of it yet? I mean, we talk about sometimes people doing life on the installment plan, and that's the path you've been on. You are catching a really big break today to not be doing your next installment in prison. To have 7 prior felonies, if you were convicted as charged with the habituals, that would almost certainly be a prison sentence. And with it, with the resolution down to the attempts, the guidelines at 0 to 17, the recommendations for a year, and you've done almost all of that with good time with what you've been sitting. So you're going to soon get out, and you're not going to be on paper with me or anybody else. And I guess we're going to find out, like what Mr. Klein said. We're going to find out if you're tired of this or not. You don't need to be on probation to go to treatment or go to AA meetings or NA meetings. So you should get yourself to those places. It sounds like you've got family that are supportive and want to help you. You're able to, describe your thoughts about this in a way that, makes me think you've got a lot more potential than what you've been living up to so far. And now you've got +2, so now you got like 9 felonies and you are on the circuit judge's radar now. So you come back for another felony, I can promise you, it's not going to be local jail. That'll be your next installment. So you're kind of at an important decision point in your life. The next felony case you get could be a long time. The last prison sentence you got was 5.5 years. It usually doesn't go down. Today it's going down, you're only getting a year. That doesn't happen much. You come in on more felonies, you're probably going, and it's for more than half a dozen years. So I hope you don't do that. Mr. Clayton hopes you don't do that. Nobody in this room hopes you do that. But we don't have any control over that. Only you do. In any event, I think given the guidelines and the information contained in the pre-sentence report, the recommendations are proportionate. So I'm going to assess a crime victims assessment of $130, crime or state cost of $136, court cost of $350. Upon your release, you'll have to set up a payment plan with the court to make reasonable efforts to get that paid down. And I'm going to order you serve 12 months in the Sheboygan County Jail with credit for 272 days previously served. That is within the advisory guidelines range. And given the felony record, there's reasonable grounds for incarceration. And you can file an appeal if you wish by filing an application with the Court of Appeals. If you want a lawyer, you have to ask me within 6 months. We're going to make sure you get some appeal paperwork about that and ask you to initial one for us and fill out the other one if you want to take an appeal. All right, good luck to you, Mr. Keefer.
Thank you, Ron.
Stop.
That hearing had a little bit of everything. People versus Jacob Keefer was a sentencing that walked the line between accountability and a final chance at redemption. Judge Aaron J. Gauthier ran the proceeding with his trademark clarity, fair, firm, and not shy about reminding the defendant of the long road behind him. Defense counsel made the first pitch. He acknowledged Keefer's struggles with addiction, but pushed back against the probation officer's blunt assessment that Keefer had no intention of making positive changes. The lawyer painted a more hopeful picture, stressing that Keefer had expressed real willingness to cut ties with destructive influences and work towards sobriety. He described him as personable, hard-working, and full of potential if he could just break the cycle of addiction. It wasn't a plea for sympathy so much as a reminder that relapse and progress often run side by side in recovery himself, then stood and delivered an apology that felt genuine. He admitted his actions had harmed not just the victim, Tyler Nash, but also his own family and community. He didn't hedge, didn't make excuses. He accepted full responsibility and said he was ready to take his sentence. That kind of statement doesn't erase a criminal record, but it matters. It showed humility, something Judge Gauthier later noted had been missing from Keefer's past encounters with the system. The pruck a balanced tone. He acknowledged the apology, but stressed that even property crimes ripple outward. No one wants to wake up to find their vehicle broken into. He supported the recommendation of a year in jail, noting Keefer's record easily could have justified prison. It was a restrained, fact-driven argument, underscoring that the sentencing guidelines already represented something of a break. Then came Judge G. Arn, and it was a mix of tough love and hard reality. He walked Keefer through his criminal history, drug court failures, repeated new charges while on supervision, and nearly 2 decades spent in and out of jails and prisons. He told Keefer point blank that this was life on the installment plan, and warned that the next felony would almost certainly mean a long prison stretch, not another local jail term. But there was also encouragement. The judge noted Keefer's intelligence, his family support, and his capacity to articulate insight about his choices. He made clear that sobriety wasn't about probation terms or court orders anymore. It was about Keefer deciding whether he was tired of living under the system's thumb. In the end, the court sent Ano 12 months in the county jail with credit for 272 days served. Given his record, 7 prior felonies, this was lenient, a chance to walk free in a matter of weeks. Judge Gauthier left no doubt that next time would be different, but for now, Keefer walked out with both a punishment and one last shot at rebuilding his life. If you found this hearing insightful, subscribing, hitting the bell, and letting me know your thoughts in the comments below. I read every one.